You know that feeling, right? You're staring at this massive spreadsheet, just rows and rows of numbers, and you know there's a story in there somewhere. But how do you actually find it? Well, that's exactly what SPSS is for. And I know it can look a little intimidating at first glance, but stick with me, and I promise, in just a few minutes, we're going to turn you into a data storyteller.
Right? I mean, that's the whole game. Until you find the meaning, data is just, well, it's just noise. SPS is the tool that lets you cut through all that static, find the real patterns, and pull out that hidden story.
Okay, so what is this thing, really? The best way to think about SPSS is like a universal translator for data. It takes all that raw information, survey results, customer feedback, whatever you've got, and it translates it into something you can actually use. It's the bridge that gets you from just having numbers to actually having knowledge. So let's jump in and see how it works.
All right, here's the game plan for the next few minutes. First, we're going to get our data in there. Then we'll run our very first simple analysis, nothing too crazy. After that, we'll turn that data into an actual insight you can see. And finally, I'll show you the core workflow you can use over and over again. All right, let's dive into section 1. Look, before we can do any of the cool analysis stuff, we got to get our data loaded up and just get comfortable with where everything is. So let's take a look around the interface. Okay, so this is the data editor. This is basically your home base in SPSS, and it's actually way simpler than it looks. Just think of it like a spreadsheet. Every single row represents a case, so that could be one person who filled out your survey, and every column is a variable. That's a piece of information about them, like their age, their income, or how they answered a specific question. Now, here's the really good news. You probably don't have to re-enter any of your data. SPS is super flexible. Yeah, it has its own file type, the .sav file, but it can easily open up your Microsoft Excel files, connect to databases, or even just read plain old text and CSV files. Basically, wherever your data is now, you can almost certainly get it into SPS without a headache. You know how sometimes in a data set, you'll see numbers like 1 for married and 2 for unmarried? It's so annoying trying to remember what each code means. Well, check this out. In SPSS, there's this little button called Value Labels. And with just one click, bam, it instantly switches between those codes and the actual words. It sounds like a small thing, but trust me, it's a total game changer for understanding your data quickly. Now, SPSS is pretty smart, but it's not a mind reader. We have to give it a little help by telling it what kind of data is in each column. And there are really just 3 main types you need to know. First, you've got scale. That's for any real numeric data, like age or income. Then there's ordinal, which is for categories that have a meaningful order, like low, medium, high. And finally, you have nominal, for categories that don't have any particular order, like someone's gender or marital status. Getting these right is absolutely crucial for making sure your analysis is correct. All right, section 2. Our data is in, it's clean, we understand the layout. Now for the fun part. Let's actually analyze something. We're going to start with one of the most basic but most important first steps you can take. Just getting a simple head count. Let's find out exactly who is in our data. To do this, we're going to run what's called a frequencies analysis. Sounds technical, I know, but it's really not. It's literally just counting things. All you do is click Analyze, go down to Descriptive Statistics, and then choose Frequencies. After that, you just tell it what you want to count, and SPSS does all the work for you. So this is what pops up. See that box on the left? That's a list of all our variables. For this example, let's say we just want a simple breakdown of who we surveyed. So we'll find gender and income category and just move them over into the variables box on the right. And that's it. We've just told SPSS what we're curious about. And boom, just like that, SPSS gives us our results. This new window is called the Viewer, and it shows us these nice, clean tables with our head count. Right away, we can see exactly how many males and females are in our survey, and we get a full breakdown by income. It's so fast, so simple, but it gives us our first real look inside the data. Okay, section 3. Now, tables are great. They give you the raw numbers. But let's be honest, our brains aren't really wired to see patterns in a big list of numbers. To really find the story, we need to see it. So let's make our first chart and turn this data into an actual insight. This is where things get really cool. To do this, we'll head over to the Chart Builder under the Graphs menu. Think of this as your creative canvas for data. It's all drag and drop, which is awesome. You just pick the kind of chart you want from the gallery, like a bar chart, drag it onto the main canvas area, and then you start dragging your variables right onto the chart itself. It's incredibly intuitive.
The most important part of making a chart is knowing what question you're trying to answer. So for this example, we're going to ask, is there a connection between people who have wireless service and people who own a PDA? Yeah, I know, PDAs. Little retro, but the concept is exactly the same for any data. So we'll drag our wireless service variable to the x-axis at the bottom, and then we'll drag owns PDA to what's called the cluster zone. Our little experiment is all set up.
We hit OK, and there it is. That's our insight. No more digging through tables. The answer to our question is just right there on the screen, clear as day. This is what I'm talking about. We just took a bunch of raw data and turned it into a real visual discovery.
So what's the story here? The chart makes it totally obvious. People who have wireless service are way more likely to also have a PDA. See? We didn't just make a pretty graph. We actually found a real relationship in the data. We found a piece of the story.
Okay, let's pull back for a second and look at what we just did, because it's more than just a few random clicks. What we've just walked through is the core, repeatable workflow you're going to use for pretty much any analysis you do in SPSS. And it really just boils down to 3 basic steps. Step 1, get your data in. Open it, import it, get it all set up. Step 2, run an analysis. Use that Analyze menu to start exploring and counting things. And step 3, create visuals. Use the Graphs menu to actually find and tell the story. That's it. That's the whole process, from a spreadsheet to an insight. Think about that for a second. In just the last few minutes, we've gone from a blank screen and a data file to a genuine discovery backed up by evidence. You now have the fundamental framework to start unlocking the stories that are hiding in your own data. Seriously, the power is at your fingertips now. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. You've got the tools, you've got the basic workflow, you have the roadmap. The only thing left to do is apply it to your own data. So the real question is, what story are you going to uncover?